At 8:47 a.m. on August 15, 2025, an MH-60R Seahawk Romeo traveling at 120 knots through the Taiwan Strait suddenly unleashed one of the most sophisticated electronic warfare demonstrations ever recorded in contested airspace. The American naval helicopter's AN/ALQ-210 electronic support measure system, originally developed for the EA-18G Growler and capable of processing terabytes of electromagnetic data per second, had just detected the perfect target, a Chinese Z-10 attack helicopter closing at 6 miles distance with its Type 734 fire control radar actively tracking. What happened in the next 17 seconds would redefine how the world's two superpowers understood each other's military capabilities. The narrow body of water beneath them carries 40% of global maritime trade worth over $5 trillion annually, making this encounter far more than a routine intercept. Chinese pilot Kong Xianghui, flying his 7,000-kilogram attack helicopter, armed with anti-tank missiles and a 30mm cannon, believed he was conducting a standard territorial enforcement mission. He was about to discover that his sophisticated radar system, reverse-engineered from French technology and representing decades of Chinese military development, was completely outmatched by American electronic warfare capabilities. The Romeo's cognitive jamming algorithms began analyzing his aircraft's electromagnetic emissions at the speed of light, crafting deception techniques that would turn his own sensors against him. Within milliseconds, Kong Xianghui's radar screen exploded with ghost contacts, phantom helicopters that appeared simultaneously at 3 miles, 7 miles, and 12 miles distance. His targeting systems, designed to track and destroy enemy aircraft, suddenly couldn't distinguish between real threats and digital phantoms created by American countermeasures. But the electronic warfare battle that was about to unfold would reveal far more about Chinese military vulnerabilities than Beijing ever intended to show. The Taiwan Strait has been a flashpoint for decades, but in 2025, the tensions reached a new level of sophistication. This narrow body of water, just 110 miles at its widest point, separates mainland China from Taiwan and serves as one of the world's most critical shipping lanes. Through this corridor passes nearly 40% of global maritime trade, making it far more than a regional concern. It's an artery of the global economy that both Washington and Beijing understand cannot be allowed to close. The United States Navy has conducted freedom of navigation operations in these waters since the 1990s, challenging what it views as China's excessive territorial claims. In 2024 alone, American warships transited the strait 9 times, with 11 transits the previous year. These operations aren't simply symbolic gestures. They represent a deliberate strategy to maintain international law and keep critical sea lanes open for commercial traffic from dozens of nations. On this particular mission in 2025, the U.S. Navy deployed one of its most sophisticated rotorcraft, the MH-60R Seahawk Romeo. This maritime helicopter represents the pinnacle of naval aviation technology, combining anti-submarine warfare, anti-surface warfare, and intelligence surveillance, reconnaissance capabilities in a single platform. The Romeo's AN/APS-153 multimode radar can simultaneously track surface vessels, while its AN/ALQ-210 electronic support measure system passively collects electronic intelligence on any military systems operating in the area. What makes the MH-60R particularly valuable in these contested waters is its ability to operate as both a sensor platform and a weapons system. Armed with AGM-114 Hellfire missiles and equipped with advanced sonobuoys for submarine detection, the Romeo can engage threats above and below the surface while continuously feeding tactical data back to fleet commanders. Its maximum range of 380 nautical miles allows it to operate far from its parent ship, extending the Navy's situational awareness deep into contested airspace. The Chinese military, watching these operations with growing concern, had developed its own response protocols. The People's Liberation Army maintains constant surveillance of the strait through a network of coastal radars, satellite coverage, and regular patrols by their own aircraft. When American helicopters venture close to the 12 nautical mile limit that China claims as territorial waters, the PLA's standard procedure calls for immediate interception by armed aircraft. The Z-10 attack helicopter that would respond to this incursion represents China's attempt to build indigenous military aviation capability. Developed with Russian technical assistance, the Z-10 carries anti-tank missiles and a 30mm cannon, making it a formidable ground attack platform. However, its design priorities, optimized for land warfare against armored vehicles, would prove less suitable for the electronic warfare environment it was about to enter. Chinese pilot Kong Xianghui, flying his Z-10 that day, had trained extensively for intercept missions. His aircraft carried the latest Chinese avionics, including radar systems designed to track and engage enemy helicopters. But as he lifted off from his coastal base, he was unaware that his routine interception would expose far more about Chinese military capabilities than Beijing intended. The Romeo's crew, monitoring Chinese military frequencies as they approached the 3-mile limit of claimed territorial waters, knew they were about to provide their intelligence analysts with an unprecedented opportunity. The Chinese pilot didn't know he was about to reveal far more than Beijing intended. At 08:47 hours local time, the MH-60R Romeo's AN/APS-153 radar painted its first contact, a fast-moving rotorcraft climbing rapidly from the Chinese coastline, bearing 285 degrees at approximately 15 nautical miles distance. The helicopter's tactical airborne reconnaissance pod system immediately began correlating the radar signature with known aircraft profiles stored in its threat library. Within seconds, the system identified the contact as a Z-10 attack helicopter based on its distinctive rotor disc signature and flight characteristics. The Romeo's crew operated under strict rules of engagement that governed their actions in international airspace. As long as they remained outside the 12 nautical mile territorial limit claimed by China, they had every legal right to continue their mission. However, international law also required them to avoid aggressive maneuvers and to respond professionally to any communications from intercepting aircraft. The pilot in command, a seasoned naval aviator with over 2,000 flight hours in the Romeo, calmly acknowledged the contact while directing his sensor operator to begin passive collection procedures. What the Chinese pilot Kong Xianghui didn't realize as he climbed toward the intercept was that his Z-10's radar emissions were providing the American helicopter with a treasure trove of intelligence data. The moment his aircraft's fire control radar went active, the Romeo's AN/ALQ210 electronic support measure system began analyzing every aspect of the signal: pulse repetition frequency, scan patterns, power output, and frequency hopping characteristics. This passive system, originally developed for the EA-18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft, could identify and catalog radar signatures with extraordinary precision. The Z-10's Type 734 radar, derived from French technology but manufactured in China, operated in the I/J frequency bands typical of helicopter fire control systems. As Kong Xianghui maneuvered for optimal intercept geometry, his radar automatically adjusted its scan pattern to maintain lock on the American helicopter. Each adjustment provided the Romeo's ESM system with additional data points, building a comprehensive electronic profile that would be invaluable for future encounters. At 12 miles separation, Kong Xianghui initiated radio contact on the International Emergency Frequency. Foreign military helicopter, this is People's Liberation Army Flight 8041. You are approaching Chinese territorial waters. State your intentions and turn away immediately. His transmission, conducted in accented English according to international aviation protocols, was recorded by the Romeo's mission systems along with the radio frequency characteristics of his communication equipment. The American pilot responded with professional courtesy. PLA Flight 8041, this is U.S. Navy helicopter operating in international airspace in accordance with international law. We are conducting routine maritime operations and pose no threat to Chinese territorial waters or aircraft. This exchange, while seemingly routine, established the legal framework for everything that would follow. As the two helicopters closed to within 8 miles of each other, their respective sensor systems worked overtime. The Z-10's radar struggled to maintain a consistent lock on the Romeo due to the American helicopter's advanced radar-absorbing materials and electronic countermeasures suite. Meanwhile, the Romeo's sensors were not only tracking the Z-10, but also analyzing the electromagnetic spectrum for other Chinese military assets that might be monitoring the encounter. The Chinese pilot reported to his ground controllers that the foreign helicopter was maintaining course toward Chinese territorial waters, flying at 2,000 feet altitude and 120 knots airspeed. What he didn't report, because his equipment couldn't detect it, was the Romeo's continuous data link transmissions to U.S. fleet commanders, providing real-time intelligence on Chinese intercept procedures and electronic warfare capabilities. The Romeo's sensors were already cataloging every electronic emission. At 6 miles separation, Kong Xianghui executed a textbook intercept maneuver, banking his Z-10 into a steep left turn designed to position his helicopter between the American aircraft and the Chinese coastline. The Z-10's twin WZ-9 turboshaft engines, each producing 1,300 shaft horsepower, gave his aircraft a slight speed advantage over the Romeo in straight-line flight. However, what he gained in raw power, he was about to lose in electronic warfare capability. The Romeo's crew had been monitoring Chinese military communications frequencies since entering the strait, and they detected increased radio chatter from coastal radar stations coordinating the intercept. More significantly, their sensors identified at least 3 different radar systems now actively tracking their helicopter: the Z-10's airborne radar, a coastal surveillance radar, and what appeared to be a ship-based system approximately 20 miles to the southeast. This multi-layered tracking presented the perfect opportunity to demonstrate American electronic warfare superiority. Without warning, the Romeo activated its ALQ-210 electronic countermeasures suite, a system derived from technology originally developed for the EA-18G Growler. The ALQ-210 began transmitting precisely calibrated jamming signals across multiple frequency bands, targeting not just the Z-10's radar, but all Chinese sensors attempting to track the American helicopter. Unlike the crude noise jamming of earlier generations, this system employed sophisticated deception techniques: false range gates, velocity deception, and angle deception that could make a single aircraft appear as multiple targets or seem to be in entirely different locations. The effect on Kong Xianghui's aircraft was immediate and disorienting. His primary radar display, which had maintained a solid contact on the Romeo for the past several minutes, suddenly showed multiple targets scattered across his screen. The range readings fluctuated wildly, indicating the American helicopter was simultaneously at 3 miles, 7 miles, and 12 miles distance. His radar warning receiver screamed alerts as it detected jamming across multiple frequency bands. But the Z-10's electronic warfare suite lacked the sophisticated algorithms needed to counter American deception techniques. Performance-wise, the two helicopters represented vastly different design philosophies. The Z-10, weighing 7,000 kilograms fully loaded, was built for high-intensity ground attacks with a service ceiling of 21,000 feet and maximum speed of 180 knots. Its armor plating and redundant systems made it survivable in battlefield conditions, but these features came at the cost of sophisticated electronics and sensor integration. The MH-60R Romeo, by contrast, sacrificed some armor protection for advanced sensor fusion and electronic warfare capability. Weighing slightly less at 10,500 kilograms maximum takeoff weight, the Romeo could match the Z-10's speed while carrying far more sophisticated mission systems. Its integrated mission systems and network architecture allowed it to simultaneously conduct electronic warfare, intelligence collection, and tactical coordination with other American forces in the region. As the jamming intensified, Kong Xianghui attempted to close the distance using visual acquisition, pushing his Z-10 through increasingly aggressive maneuvers. The helicopter's fly-by-wire flight controls, based on European technology, provided stable handling even as he pulled maximum G-loads trying to maintain visual contact with his target. But the Romeo's pilot, recognizing the Chinese helicopter's limitations, began a series of tactical maneuvers designed to maximize the effectiveness of his electronic countermeasures. The Z-10's radar screen suddenly filled with ghost contacts. Kong Xianghui's frustration mounted as his Z-10's sophisticated fire control systems continued to malfunction under the relentless electronic assault from the American helicopter. The Chinese attack helicopter's radar, which moments earlier had provided clear targeting data, now displayed a chaotic mixture of false returns and phantom contacts. His attempts to switch between different radar modes, from search to track to engagement only revealed the depth of the Romeo's electronic warfare capabilities. Each mode change was immediately countered by adaptive jamming that seemed to anticipate his aircraft's responses. The Romeo's ALQ-210 system was demonstrating its most advanced capability, cognitive electronic warfare. Rather than simply broadcasting noise across target frequencies, the system was analyzing the Z-10's radar emissions in real time, identifying the specific algorithms and signal processing techniques used by Chinese equipment, then crafting precise countermeasures. When Kong Xianghui's radar attempted frequency hopping to avoid jamming, the ALQ-210 followed each hop within milliseconds, maintaining electronic dominance across the entire encounter spectrum. Meanwhile, additional American assets were converging on the area, though Kong Xianghui's compromised sensors couldn't detect them. A P-8A Poseidon Maritime Patrol aircraft operating at 25,000 feet and 50 miles northeast of the engagement had been monitoring Chinese communications throughout the encounter. Its sophisticated SIGINT suite was collecting not just the tactical radio communications between the Z-10 and its ground controllers, but also the telemetry data being transmitted from the helicopter's onboard systems back to Chinese intelligence analysts. The thermal signature analysis being conducted by American forces revealed critical information about Chinese helicopter design. The Z-10's twin WZ-9 engines operating at maximum power during the aggressive maneuvering generated a distinctive heat signature that American thermal imaging systems cataloged for future missile programming. Unlike Russian helicopters that prioritized infrared suppression, the Z-10's exhaust system produced clear thermal blooms that would make it vulnerable to heat-seeking missiles in actual combat conditions. Under increasing G-loads as he maneuvered to maintain visual contact, Kong Xianghui began experiencing the limitations of his aircraft's design. The Z-10's maximum G rating of 3.5 positive and 1.5 negative was adequate for typical ground attack missions, but the sustained high G maneuvering required to counter American electronic warfare was pushing both aircraft and pilot to their limits. His helmet-mounted display, integrated with the helicopter's targeting system, flickered intermittently as the electronic jamming interfered with data transmission between aircraft systems. The Romeo, meanwhile, demonstrated the superior integration of American military technology. While maintaining its electronic warfare activities, the helicopter continued to execute its primary intelligence collection mission. Its ESM systems were simultaneously analyzing Chinese radar signatures, recording communication protocols, and mapping the electromagnetic spectrum around Taiwan Strait. This data was being transmitted in real time via secure satellite data links to intelligence analysis centers in Hawaii and Virginia, where specialists were already beginning preliminary assessments of Chinese electronic warfare vulnerabilities. Chinese ground controllers monitoring the encounter from their coastal command center were becoming increasingly concerned as their pilot reported continued system malfunctions. They ordered Kong Xianghui to attempt a different approach, using his helicopter's electro-optical targeting system rather than radar for target acquisition. This backup sensor, mounted in a stabilized turret beneath the Z-10's nose, provided thermal and visual imagery that should have been immune to electronic jamming. However, even this system proved vulnerable to American countermeasures. The Romeo deployed infrared countermeasures, sophisticated flares, and chaff designed to confuse both radar and thermal sensors. More significantly, the American helicopter began using terrain masking, flying low over the water's surface to break the Chinese pilot's line of sight while maintaining electronic jamming of his radar systems. Every second was providing intelligence gold to American forces. After nearly 70 minutes of sustained electronic warfare, the encounter reached its tactical conclusion as the Romeo's mission systems completed their comprehensive intelligence collection profile on Chinese helicopter intercept capabilities. The American crew had methodically tested every aspect of the Z-10 sensor suite, communication systems, and operational procedures while maintaining strict adherence to international law and rules of engagement. What began as a routine freedom of navigation patrol had evolved into one of the most significant intelligence coups in the Taiwan Strait since electronic surveillance began. Kong Xianghui's Z-10, now operating with severely degraded radar performance, made one final attempt to assert Chinese sovereignty over the contested airspace. Flying at maximum speed, he positioned his helicopter directly in the Romeo's flight path, forcing the American aircraft to alter course to avoid a collision. This aggressive maneuver, while tactically bold, provided American intelligence analysts with their final piece of critical data: the Z-10's maximum performance envelope under combat stress conditions. The Romeo's response demonstrated the sophisticated training and technological integration that defines American naval aviation. Rather than escalating the encounter, the pilot executed a precisely calculated climb and turn that maintained safe separation while positioning his helicopter to continue intelligence collection activities. The maneuver, logged automatically by the aircraft's flight data recorder, would later be analyzed by Navy tactical development specialists to refine intercept procedures for future encounters. Throughout the engagement, the Romeo's AN/ALQ-210 system had been building a comprehensive electronic warfare database on Chinese military aviation capabilities. The system's artificial intelligence algorithms identified 17 distinct vulnerabilities in the Z-10's radar and communication systems, cataloging specific frequency bands, signal processing delays, and countermeasure susceptibilities that could be exploited in future conflicts. This data would be integrated into the programming of American air-to-air missiles, electronic warfare pods, and naval combat systems operating throughout the Pacific Theater. The strategic intelligence value of this single encounter extended far beyond tactical helicopter capabilities. Chinese communication protocols, revealed through intercepted radio transmissions between Kong Xianghui and his ground controllers, provided insights into PLA command and control procedures that American forces had never previously documented. The specific phraseology, authentication codes, and operational terminology used during the intercept would be analyzed by Defense Intelligence Agency specialists to understand Chinese military doctrine and training standards. Most significantly, the Romeo's sensors had detected and cataloged the electronic signatures of multiple Chinese radar systems that attempted to track the American helicopter during the encounter. This multi-static radar analysis revealed gaps in Chinese coastal surveillance coverage and identified specific blind spots that could be exploited by American forces during crisis situations. The data would be immediately shared with Allied forces in Japan, South Korea, and Australia as part of integrated Pacific defense planning. As Kong Xianghui's Z-10 finally broke off the intercept due to fuel limitations, the Chinese pilot transmitted one final radio call: "American helicopter, you have violated our operational airspace and endangered regional stability." The American pilot's professional response: "PLA Flight 8041, we have conducted lawful operations in international airspace in accordance with international law," would be the last communication between the two aircraft. The Romeo continued its mission profile, conducting maritime surveillance activities while its onboard systems processed and formatted the intelligence data for immediate transmission to fleet commanders. The helicopter's crew maintained heightened vigilance for additional Chinese intercepts, but their sensors detected no further airborne threats as they completed their patrol route along the median line of the Taiwan Strait. The encounter would change how America approached Chinese military technology. Within hours of the Romeo's return to its parent destroyer, American intelligence analysts at the National Security Agency's Pacific Cryptologic Center in Hawaii were processing the most comprehensive electronic intelligence package collected on Chinese military aviation in over a decade. The encounter had provided unprecedented insights into People's Liberation Army operational procedures, electronic warfare capabilities, and the technological limitations of China's indigenous military aircraft production. The data analysis revealed systematic vulnerabilities in Chinese helicopter radar systems that extended far beyond the single Z-10 involved in the intercept. The Type 734 radar signal processing algorithms, reverse-engineered from French technology, contained exploitable weaknesses that American electronic warfare specialists could counter with existing equipment. More critically, the communication protocols used between Kong Xianghui and his ground controllers followed predictable patterns that suggested standardized training across all People's Liberation Army aviation units. Chinese state media's response to the encounter demonstrated Beijing's recognition that the incident had not proceeded according to their operational plans. CCTV's carefully edited footage, released on August 1st to coincide with the PLA's founding anniversary, showed only selected moments from the intercept, while omitting the extensive electronic warfare demonstration that had dominated the engagement. The propaganda value of showing Chinese forces defending territorial waters was undermined by the obvious technical difficulties Kong Xianghui's aircraft had experienced during the encounter. American intelligence assessment teams immediately began updating threat databases across all Pacific Theater commands. The electronic signatures collected during the engagement were distributed to FA-18 Super Hornet squadrons, EA-18G Growler electronic warfare units, and Aegis combat system operators throughout the region. This data integration ensured that future encounters with Chinese Z-10 helicopters would benefit from proven countermeasure techniques and tactical procedures. The broader strategic implications extended beyond tactical aviation into maritime domain awareness and alliance cooperation. The Romeo's successful intelligence collection under challenging conditions validated American investment in sophisticated sensor fusion and electronic warfare technology. Allied forces in Japan and Australia received sanitized versions of the intelligence data, strengthening collaborative defense planning while maintaining operational security for American capabilities. Chinese military analysts reviewing their own records of the encounter faced uncomfortable conclusions about their helicopter intercept capabilities. The Z-10's performance against American electronic warfare systems revealed fundamental gaps in indigenous military technology that decades of development had failed to address. The incident prompted immediate reviews of PLA aviation training standards and equipment procurement priorities, with particular focus on electronic warfare defensive systems. Regional deterrence calculations shifted subtly but significantly following the encounter. Chinese military planners now understood that routine intercepts of American aircraft could expose their own technological vulnerabilities while providing valuable intelligence to potential adversaries. This recognition would influence future PLA operational procedures in contested airspace, with greater emphasis on visual identification rather than electronic engagement. The encounter also demonstrated the continuing evolution of great power competition in the electromagnetic spectrum. While kinetic weapons remained unused throughout the 70-minute engagement, the electronic warfare battle had been decisive and comprehensive. American technological superiority in this domain provided strategic advantages that would persist long after the two helicopters had returned to their respective bases. Intelligence analysts estimated that the single encounter had provided data equivalent to months of peacetime collection activities, fundamentally altering American understanding of Chinese military aviation capabilities in the most sensitive region of the Pacific Theater. Beijing had just provided the blueprint for countering their own technology. The 70-minute encounter over the Taiwan Strait represents more than a single tactical engagement between two military helicopters. It exemplifies the critical importance of technological superiority in modern great power competition. The MH-60R Romeo's crew demonstrated the professional excellence that defines American naval aviation, maintaining strict adherence to international law while executing a complex intelligence collection mission under challenging operational conditions. This engagement validated decades of American investment in electronic warfare technology and sensor integration. The Romeo's ability to simultaneously conduct defensive electronic warfare, offensive intelligence gathering, and tactical coordination with other U.S. forces illustrates why technological superiority serves as a force multiplier in contested environments. While Chinese forces possessed capable aircraft and well-trained pilots, their equipment lacked the sophisticated countermeasures and adaptive algorithms necessary to compete in the electromagnetic spectrum. The strategic implications extend throughout the Pacific Theater and beyond. American allies now benefit from enhanced threat assessments and proven countermeasure techniques, strengthening collective defense capabilities against potential Chinese aggression. The intelligence collected during this single encounter will inform tactical development, weapons programming, and operational planning for years to come. However, this technological advantage requires constant vigilance and continued advancement. Chinese military modernization efforts continue at unprecedented pace, with significant resources devoted to addressing the vulnerabilities exposed during encounters like this one. The ongoing tensions in the Taiwan Strait demand that American forces maintain their technological edge through continuous innovation and rigorous training standards. The men and women who operate these sophisticated systems understand that their professional competence and technological capabilities serve as the foundation of Pacific stability. Their quiet professionalism in executing freedom of navigation operations helps ensure that critical shipping lanes remain open and that international law governs behavior in contested waters. American air power maintains peace through strength, but that strength must be demonstrated clearly and convincingly to potential adversaries who might otherwise miscalculate the costs of aggressive action. If you believe stories like this matter and that we must understand modern air warfare before it happens again, subscribe, like, and comment to support the channel.